Minato Narumiya once attended a Kyudo competition, the traditional Japanese art of archery, together with his mother. He was deeply inspired by the performances of the masters, but what impressed him most was the enchanting sound of the taut bowstring as the arrow was released into flight. That moment remained in his memory forever. Years passed. One morning, after his usual jog, Minato was washing his face when he suddenly realized, with annoyance, that he had forgotten to bring a towel. Unexpectedly, a boy approached and handed him one. It turned out to be Seiya Takahaya, an old acquaintance of his. Seiya happened to be walking his dog nearby. Minato was surprised to learn that Seiya had enrolled in the same high school. He admitted he hadn't expected such a choice from Seiya. On the first day of school, Ryohei Yamanouchi, their former classmate from elementary school, came running up to them. Their cheerful conversation was interrupted by a teacher who had an unexpected proposal. He invited the three of them to follow him to the school's archery range. It turned out the school administration had tasked him with reviving the Kyudo club. Seiya and Ryohei happily agreed to join. Minato, however, hesitated. Since his mother's death, he had many responsibilities at home and wasn't sure he could manage it. The teacher asked him to think it over and promised that he would always be welcome at the club. Ryohei tried to persuade Minato to at least drop by the club's first meeting. Minato refused, but then Ryohei recalled how he had once seen Minato compete in a Kyudo tournament. Minato's archery had impressed him so much that it inspired Ryohei to join a Kyudo club himself. He even offered to help Minato with his chores if it meant getting him back into the club. In the end, Minato relented and promised to at least come to the meeting. The meeting began. Among those gathered were a few experienced archers and many newcomers. The teacher asked Minato to demonstrate his skills, knowing that he once had an exceptionally good shot. Minato refused at first, but under pressure, he agreed. He was given a bow and arrows, and although he hadn't practiced Kyudo for years, he still carried his special archery glove in his bag. In Kyudo, the shooting process is a whole ceremony. First a bow, then slow, sliding steps to the shooting line, assuming the proper stance, fixing one's gaze on the target, and gradually drawing the string. Minato took aim and released his first arrow, and missed. The second arrow also flew past the target. The room fell silent. After the meeting, Kaito Onogi approached Minato and sharply criticized him for taking Kyudo too lightly. He asked where Minato's pride as an archer had gone. Minato pushed him away and left. The teacher quietly remarked that it seemed Minato was developing target panic. Minato felt disheartened. On his way home, he happened to pass by Nomori's Kyudo hall. Hearing the sharp, clean sound of an arrow being released, he stopped in his tracks. Behind a partition, someone executed a flawless shot with perfect technique. Minato was captivated. Suddenly, an owl's hoot startled him. He jumped, stumbled, and fell. The mysterious archer he had been watching stepped out in response to the noise. The mysterious archer whom Minato had been watching stepped out in response to the noise. An owl was perched on his shoulder, the same one that had frightened Minato. The boy apologized for the intrusion and was about to leave, but the stranger invited him in to treat a scratch on his arm. Minato agreed. During their conversation, Minato asked how diligently the archer trained. He replied that he shot 100 arrows every day, and his goal was 10,000 arrows in 100 days. Only 3 days remained until the goal would be reached. The archer invited Minato to give it a try as well, but Minato, irritated, replied that he no longer practiced archery and ran off. The mysterious archer with the perfect stance stayed in Minato's thoughts even at school. Meanwhile, Seiya and Ryohei didn't give up hope that Minato would change his mind and join the Kyudo club. For now, they continued training hard without him. Soon, Minato returned to the Kyudo hall to see the stranger again. As before, he observed from the shadows. The archer noticed him, invited him in, and asked for help replacing the bowstring. An owl flew in and landed on Minato's shoulder. The archer took a shot and hit the target perfectly. A prefectural Kyudo tournament was approaching. The teacher informed the newcomers that they could also take part if they trained diligently. The tournament allowed both individual and team participation, with teams of 5. Seiya wanted to compete as part of a team, but they were still one member short. He hoped Minato would join them. He also wanted to make amends for something that had happened between them in the past. Minato recalled the events from 10 months earlier. Back then, he and Seiya were in a Kyudo club at their local junior high school. He had been considered one of the most promising archers. But during one of the tournaments, strange feelings of anxiety overcame him. He drew the bowstring and released the arrow, hoping to hear his favorite sound, tsurune, the very sound that had made him fall in love with Kyudo. But the sound didn't come. For the first time in a long while, he missed the target. His anxiety deepened. The team's chance to reach the finals depended on his next shot, and he missed again. Later, Minato confided in the mysterious archer that he could no longer hear the sound of tsurune. The archer explained that it was a case of target panic. He introduced himself as Masaki Takigawa and shared that he had once gone through the same thing. Masaki told Minato that if he truly wanted to heal, this place wasn't for him. He needed to train as part of a team. The next morning, Minato noticed that he had accidentally taken a small jar of powder used for the arrows and decided to return it to Masaki on his way to school. A woman answered the door and told him that Mr. Takigawa had passed away a year ago. Minato was shocked. Had he really been speaking to a ghost? That night, he returned to the Kyudo hall and once again saw Masaki preparing to release his final arrow. Minato rushed to him, begging him not to disappear. He needed him too much. Masaki was confused, but after hearing the explanation, he laughed until he cried. It turned out that the woman Minato had spoken to was extremely forgetful. In reality, it was Mr. Tokizawa who had died a year ago. Masaki offered Minato the honor of releasing the 10,000th arrow in his place. Minato agreed. The arrow missed the target once more, but this time Minato was sure he would return to Kyudo and conquer his fear. Minato returns to the club and sincerely apologizes to the others for his past behavior. He says he wants to come back and continue practicing Kyudo. Ryohei is happy, thinking that Minato has overcome his target panic, but Minato admits that the problem is still there. Kaito openly expresses his displeasure at Minato's return. Because of Kaito's harsh attitude, only 8 members remain in the club. Ryohei worries about Minato, but Seiya is confident. Once Kaito sees how passionate Minato is about archery again, their hostility will fade. The teacher decides not to interfere in the conflict. Ryohei has no idea how to help Minato, let alone cure him. Seiya recalls how Minato first experienced target panic back in middle school and how he himself failed to support him then. Now, he's determined to stay by Minato's side. In search of answers, Ryohei heads to the library. There, he meets a boy who also practices Kyudo. The stranger advises him to speak with a bow shop owner. After hearing Ryohei's story, the shop owner gives him a diary written by his friend who once struggled with the same fear. That evening at home, Ryohei studies the diary carefully. The next morning, Ryohei goes to see Minato before school, but he's already gone. It turns out Minato now arrives much earlier to train and read the diary Masaki gave him. During another training session, Kaido once again clashes with Minato. Ryuhei deeply wishes they could finally get along. Nanao Kisaragi admires Ryuhei's kindness and promises to help him reconcile the two. Soon, the club members begin to notice that the club room is always clean and the plants are watered. Without discussing it, they all start coming in earlier, only to discover that it's Minato who has been quietly taking care of everything. Seiya asks Minato why he decided to return. Minato replies that he once again heard the sound of tsurune while watching Masaki shoot. In that moment, he realized that life without Kyudo felt meaningless. Having overheard the conversation, Kaido says that he respects Ryohei's efforts so much that he's ready to accept Minato as a full member of the club. The conflict is finally resolved. At the end, the teacher introduces the club's new coach. Both Kaito and Minato are stunned to see that it's none other than Masaki Takigawa. Masaki Takigawa introduces himself to his new students. Minato notices that he has had a haircut. Unlike the others, Minato and Kaito already know Masaki. The students begin their training. Masaki watches everyone carefully, but only Minato keeps his distance. The coach approaches him and gives a few tips. Kaito doesn't like it. It seems to him that they're getting too friendly. Seiya asks Kaito how he knows Coach Masaki, but Kaito avoids answering. He's irritated that the coach treats everyone equally instead of paying more attention to him personally. Because of this, he gets angry and lashes out at his teammates. Minato's father notices that his son's mood has greatly improved lately. During training, Ryohei, while drawing his bowstring, accidentally hits Minato. Seiya immediately rushes over to check on him, but once he realizes how it might have looked, he becomes a little embarrassed. Masaki decides to organize a practice tournament to show the students what real competitions are like. The teams are formed, boys versus girls. Since there are only 3 girls, they're joined by teacher Tomio Soneoka and Masaki himself. Kaito is sure it's pointless. The girls are bound to lose. Masaki watches with interest as the boys organize their shooting order on their own. He announces that there will be a prize. The losing team will have to serve the winners for a few days. The tournament begins. The boys go first, then the girls. To everyone's surprise, the girls' team wins by a wide margin. Now the boys must carry out the girls' requests. They try to figure out who's to blame for the loss, but soon realize they all were just too nervous. They demand a rematch, but teacher Tomio has injured his back again and can't participate. To help the students improve their skills, Masaki organizes a summer training camp at his private Kyudo dojo in the forest. The students will live and train there for several days. After a brief hesitation, everyone agrees. The day before the camp, Kaito receives a message from Masaki asking him to arrive an hour early. Excited, he believes the coach has a special task just for him. When he arrives, he sees a man with a camera outside and assumes he's a spy, but it turns out to be Masaki's older brother. Kaito rushes into the dojo and sees Masaki hugging Minato. In reality, the coach was just helping him put on a kimono. Masaki had invited them both to assist in performing a traditional ritual held before training camps and tournaments. The ceremony begins. Masaki, Minato, and Kaito perform the ritual. Masaki fires an arrow. His technique and focus are flawless. Minato can't take his eyes off him. Morning at the camp starts early for the boys. They continue to carry out their servant duties. Masaki announces the list of tasks they have to complete throughout the day. The boys express their frustration. They had expected the training camp to prepare them for the upcoming qualifiers and focus on archery, not force them to do hard labor. The coach promises that if there's any time left after completing their tasks, they'll be allowed to practice shooting. But for now, they don't even have time to rest. The boys watch with resentment as the girls calmly train and receive helpful advice from Masaki. The girls ask the coach if it's okay for them to train separately from the boys. Masaki replies that training isn't just about shooting, it's also about observing, thinking, and learning. The next task for the boys is to buy groceries for dinner. On the way to the store, Nanao suggests splitting up to finish faster and hopefully save some time for practice. Everyone agrees. The idea seems efficient. Minato pairs up with Nanao for shopping. As they walk, they talk about Kaito's behavior. Minato wonders why Kaito seems so hostile toward him. Nanao replies that Kaito usually doesn't care at all about people he's not interested in, which means Minato must have caught his attention. He also recalls how back in middle school, Kaito gave him a baseball cap, even though he knew nothing about baseball, but he knew how much Nanao loved it. On their way back, the boys decide to take a group photo. A gust of wind suddenly blows away Nanao's beloved cap. The boys return to camp completely soaked. It turns out Minato had chased after the cap when it flew into the river. Kaito jumped in to help, and together they dove off a cliff to retrieve it. Later, in the bathhouse, the boys ask Minato why he enrolled in such an unpopular school. He explains that it was due to the low tuition and his fear of the target. When they ask Seiya, he unexpectedly admits that he chose this school because of Minato. Minato is genuinely surprised by the confession. That evening, the boys prepare a barbecue for the girls. Masaki's older brother, who has been photographing the group all day, observes that the boys have become much more united compared to the morning. He also notices something else. Masaki himself looks different. He seems genuinely happier when he's with the students. With that, the boys' punishment period comes to an end. They are finally allowed to return to archery, and they couldn't be happier. Midterm exams will begin next week. Because of this, club activities are temporarily suspended for a full week. During the final practice before the break, the students have many questions for their coach. After school, Seiya meets with Minato. During their conversation, Minato asks for his help. He wants to learn how to better communicate with others. Seiya recalls their mutual acquaintance, Shu Fujiwara, and says they'll most likely meet him again at the upcoming tournament. At the same time, Shu Fujiwara is practicing Kyudo at the prestigious Kirasaki High School and is also preparing for the tournament. His technique is flawless, and he always hits the target. Senior teammates approach him with an unusual request. They strongly ask him not to participate in the qualifying rounds, to give other team members a chance to prove themselves. Over the weekend, coach Masaki Takigawa meets with teacher Tomio Morioka at a bar. Tomio thanks Masaki for agreeing to become the club's coach, even though he had initially refused. During their conversation, they recall Masaki's grandfather, who was a legendary Kyudo instructor. Masaki confesses that he took on the coaching role out of a desire for revenge. His grandfather had been an exceptional archer, but also a very strict mentor. Masaki wants to prove that it's possible to train true archers without harsh methods, through support, trust, and compassion. The one-week break ends. The students joyfully return to the club. Masaki shows them the list of participants in the qualifying tournament. Among the names, Minato and Seiya recognize one in particular, Shu Fujiwara. Minato recalls his first encounter with Shu Fujiwara. Many years ago, he was running around every Kyudo hall looking for a club that would accept him. In one of those halls, he saw Shu for the first time. Now, they will meet again, for the first time in a long while. The opening day of the Kyudo tournament has arrived. The teacher and coach give their students final instructions. Minato and Seiya run into Shu. They chat for a few minutes about nothing in particular, but before leaving, Shu hugs Minato and asks about his condition. Minato replies that it's gotten a bit better. Shu admits he believes Minato will return someday and hopes to see his flawless shooting again. Among the rival team is a boy whom Ryohei met at the library while looking for a way to help Minato. Now that boy knows there's someone on their team suffering from target panic. On the first day of the tournament, the individual matches take place. Minato watches Shu's performance in awe. He's just as brilliant as before. The second day brings the team qualifying rounds. Already in the first round, the boys fall significantly behind and are very upset. It turns out that the tournament is overseen by the shopkeeper from the archery store where Ryohei once went for advice. The diary he let him read, those are Masaki's notes. Before the second round, the team is very nervous. Nanao tries to snap his best friend Kaito out of it. He knows that in order to get Kaito to relax, he needs to irritate him a little. Later, Nanao confesses to Minato that he only became an archer to stay close to Kaito and support him. In the second round, the boys shoot much better and make it to the next stage. After the tournament, Shu meets Minato again. He says he wants to achieve more, but he can't do it alone. Shu confesses that he needs Minato, because Minato once appeared out of nowhere and changed his life. Seiya overhears this conversation. Later, he approaches Shu and asks him not to confuse Minato. But Shu replies that it's Seiya who should calm down and stop chasing after Minato, because he knows full well that Seiya was never truly interested in archery in the first place. Masaki gives individual guidance to each student. Despite the intense preparation for the tournament, he is forced to temporarily leave the team due to his temple duties. He serves there as a monk. The boys walk home together, discussing their mistakes during the preliminaries and evaluating their chances of winning. Nanao suggests meeting on Friday together with the girls from the club to talk everything over and develop a strategy. Everyone agrees. Shu visits the teacher who once taught him and Minato archery when they were children. She is happy to hear that Minato is still practicing Kyudo and is gradually overcoming his problem. She's curious about the young coach at Kazumai High School. After all, he was the one who helped Minato return to the sport. The students have fun at a cafe, looking through photos and discussing what a perfect shot should be, beautiful or precise. Meanwhile, Seiya can't forget the conversation with Shu, who told him to stop chasing after Minato. He recalls their first meeting. He still keeps the wrapper from the chocolate that Minato once gave him. Many years ago, Minato was in an accident and suffered a serious injury. Now, he undergoes regular medical checkups, which causes him to miss training sometimes. His doctor is Seiya's father. He asks Minato whether he's noticed how much Seiya has changed since the tournament, how he has become gloomy and withdrawn. Even during practice, he seems closed off and no longer hits the target. His teammates worry whether he'll be able to recover in time for the competition. Coach Masaki is also late. Watching Seiya shoot, he is surprised. He realizes something is wrong and tries to give advice. But Seiya's body language makes it clear he doesn't want it. When it starts to rain, Seiya doesn't go home but continues shooting as if nothing happened. Soaked to the skin, he tells the others not to wait for him. Masaki also stays at the club. He asks Seiya if he loves Kyudo, because if he does, it'll be easier to find his way back. Seiya replies that he doesn't know whether he loves Kyudo, but one thing he knows for sure, he hates Masaki. In the morning, Minato stops by Seiya's house before school. Seiya's mother tells him that Seiya got soaked in the rain the day before and is staying home with a fever. At school, Kaito questions Minato about why Seiya has been acting distant since the qualifying tournament. He's surprised Minato hasn't noticed anything, considering they're best friends. Without Seiya, the team won't be able to move forward. Kaito hopes Minato can help bring him back. Kaito criticizes Ryohei's shooting technique, but when someone points out his own mistakes, he gets angry. The girls from the club notice the boys are starting to argue again and ask Coach Masaki to do something about it. Masaki has a secret plan to reconcile the team. He tells them there will soon be a festival at the shrine where lucky charms will be handed out. He invites everyone to come, and the boys agree. Masaki asks Minato to pass the invitation on to Seiya. Minato goes to Seiya's door, but Seiya doesn't come out, saying he's still sick. So Minato leaves a box of sweets and a note in the mailbox. The festival at the shrine begins. Everyone from the team shows up, except Seiya. To their surprise, the rival team is also there, also hoping to get lucky charms. Tensions rise, and the two groups begin exchanging jabs. Minato and Shu step aside to talk. Shu asks where Seiya is and shares something Seiya told him after the tournament. Shu had said Seiya only shoots because he's obsessed with Minato and that it's hurting everyone. Now Minato finally begins to understand Seiya's recent behavior. Meanwhile, Seiya finds the sweets and note from Minato. His fever is high and everything is spinning before his eyes, but he decides to go. He doesn't make it to the shrine. Minato finds him sitting on a bridge, soaked and exhausted. Seiya says Minato can manage just fine without him, so he won't be doing Kyudo anymore. Minato replies that it's not about whether he can manage or not. He wants to shoot together with Seiya, and he's willing to wait as long as it takes. The next day, Seiya returns to the dojo and resumes training with the team. Coach Masaki comes up to him and apologizes for once asking if he really loved Kyudo. Seiya smiles and says he still doesn't know if he loves Kyudo, but he definitely hates Masaki. This time, though, his words carry a different meaning, warmer and filled with reconciliation. Seiya returned to school after his illness. His friends immediately noticed that he had become much calmer, and their friendship had grown stronger. Ryohei is confident that they will definitely perform well at the upcoming tournament. Before the physical education class, Minato remembers that he forgot his sports uniform in the Kyudo hall and rushes to get it. On the way, he accidentally overhears a conversation between Coach Masaki and teacher Tomio Morioka. Masaki admits that he took up coaching out of revenge against his mentor, his grandfather, with whom he hadn't communicated for many years. Now he wants to learn more about him. Tomio suggests finding the grandfather's friends and talking to them. Minato leaves deeply impressed by what he heard. After practice, Minato tells Seiya about the conversation. He also shares the story of how he met Masaki, who at that time was shooting 10,000 arrows. Seiya says he heard that such a ritual is performed to make an important decision or to make a wish. Meanwhile, Masaki searches for information about his grandfather, going through his belongings and finding old photographs. To find out who is in the pictures, he goes to an old friend, Nakazaki. Nakazaki recognizes the teacher Sayonji and tells him where to find her. At the gate of Sayonji's house, Masaki meets Minato. Minato had called Shu and informed him that their teacher wanted to meet with him. She invites them into her house, but cannot say much about Masaki's grandfather. She hasn't communicated with him for 10 years. However, she knows that he had a close friend, a monk named Yasoni. Masaki shares with Minato that when he developed target panic, his grandfather didn't support him. Instead, he said that Masaki was weak, lazy, and just making excuses with his illness. After that, they stopped communicating. Later, when Masaki managed to overcome the problem with the help of other teachers, his grandfather had already passed away. Masaki felt an emptiness inside and decided to shoot 10,000 arrows as a farewell to archery forever. But then Minato appeared, and Masaki regained the desire to prove that teaching can be done without cruelty. At the next practice, Minato tells his friends everything so they can better understand Coach Masaki's state. At that moment, Masaki himself enters and says he contacted teacher Yasoni, who offered him to take part in a ritual where they could talk. However, Masaki is not going because he doesn't want to leave the team just one day before the tournament. But the guys disagree, saying he might miss the chance to talk later. Masaki leaves, promising to return a day before the tournament. But he doesn't show up even on the day of the competition. He doesn't answer calls, and the guys start to worry. Suddenly, Nakazaki arrives and informs them that the coach was in an accident. Nakazaki informs the boys that Coach Masaki has been in an accident. He also gives them hachimaki, headbands that Masaki had ordered as gifts before his departure. Minato feels guilty, believing it was his idea that convinced the coach to leave. Seiya reassures him, saying it's definitely not his fault. Everyone is upset. The boys are anxious, constantly checking their phones for news. The girls step in to calm them down. They say that panicking won't help Masaki now. The most important thing at this moment is to focus on the tournament. The team pulls themselves together and starts preparing. The competition begins. Nerves take over. Many arrows miss the target. After the first round, during the break, the boys go over the results and give each other advice. Kaito encourages them to remember everything the coach taught them. The next round begins. Minato feels a strange fear. He misses a few shots, but soon he realizes the source of this fear. He's shooting last, just as the coach had assigned him. There's no one behind him, only his teammates ahead. Not everything depends on him alone. Kazumai High's team ends up with the same number of points as one of their rival teams. Now they must face a tiebreaker round. Whoever misses more will be eliminated. Minato suddenly suggests forgetting all of Masaki's lessons, at least for now. Ever since the coach placed him last in the lineup, he's felt constant fear. With no one behind him and not looking ahead, he hadn't trusted his team. He tells them not to overthink every word Masaki ever said. They just need to shoot. The team is called to the shooting line. The boys shoot with confidence, no misses. They advance to the finals. The boys make it to the finals. It's hard to believe. Emotions run high, but they still have one decisive battle ahead. Before it begins, Shu approaches Seiya with a smirk and asks if he's still chasing after Minato. Seiya calmly replies that he's not chasing him. They shoot together, shoulder to shoulder. Shu is deeply nervous about Minato shooting right beside him again. The competition starts. Both teams perform brilliantly. After several rounds, each has only one miss. The victory will be decided by the last two archers, Minato and Shu. Minato is fully focused on the target and hits it precisely. Shu, however, is unsettled by Minato's close presence. It throws him off balance, and for the first time in a long while, he misses. Kazumai High School's team wins the tournament.